into town yesterday. It won't be long till I'll be on my way. These few days, honey, I'll be around. Please don't try to bring me down.
Yep.
I made my entrance on a Greyhound bus. I don't intend to cause a fuss. You like my style, honey, that's fine with me. If you don't, then just let me be. Don't try to make me what I'm not. Lord, I just get by with what I got. Live, let live, that's my advice. Lord, if you've got questions, honey, ask me nice. It
Folks,
goes on, but
that's it. Folks, welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show, and blessed today to be with an incredible musician and somebody who's dear friends with a really amazing uncle of mine, Steve Grams. Kit Kildahl, welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show.
Thank you. It's good.
You know, I just wanted to throw out a couple names for you. I mean, no one's going to mistake you as a jazz musician per se, but I did want you to. I wanted you to talk about a couple of cats. Mose Allison.
Yeah, that was a Mose tune right there.
That was a Mose because I
Yeah.
mean, you were. Can you talk about how the jazzers, whether it was Horace Silver or Les McCann, some of these crossover cats, just how they affected your vibe, if at all?
They affected my vibe hugely, but the first thing that bit me was just when I heard Lightning Hopkins when I was 14 years old, and that just redirected my life. But as I learned more, I started getting into guys like T-Bone Walker, who's really seminal in that whole jazz blues.
Why don't you talk about, because the blues and the jazz are right alongside each other at that time.
Oh yeah.
So you talk about that for younger generations like myself, like why? Because he was on there are albums with T-Bone. There's one album with T-Bone Walker and like Dizzy. That was right there.
Well, he and Charlie Christian were the first guys to play single note style guitar, where it was first getting electrified, so it became a solo instrument. Up to that, it was Freddie Green. It's part of the rhythm section with banjo and stuff like that.
Keep that foundation, yeah.
But then they started amplifying them, and these guys started learning horn parts. So, and T-Bone Walker, he was the total 100% influence on B.B. King. The total 100% influence on Chuck Berry. I mean, Chuck Berry made a living with... That's a T-Bone Walker.
That's T-Bone.
Yeah. And T-Bone would start so many songs with that thing.
I lost my baby. Yeah.
There you go. This is famous, like where you go. That's T-Bone, and everybody copped that shit. Everybody copped it. So yeah, but Mose Allison, huge influence.
In where you grew up, I mean, when I've interviewed John Sebastian, David Bromberg, on the East Coast, the Reverend Gary Davis was in New York, and he was totally blind. So those cats would actually get him to gigs and help him get to the, they were like almost like his overseers. Plus they worshipped at his feet playing wise. Was there any like local blues cats around your region that you gravitated to or actually had access to personally, or maybe even did T-Bone or Lightning come through?
Nobody like that. And I grew up in West Lafayette, Indiana, so it was a Purdue University. That's my old man taught there. So
no acts came through Purdue, or was it a pretty square place?
Pretty square, but they had a lot of stuff come through the music hall. I mean, later on, like the Allman Brother Band.
Oh, absolutely.
In Chicago and stuff like that. But when I was first heard, it was stuff like, it was white WLS radio out of Chicago we were listening to. And then I meant to buy that first Beatles record, and I rode to the store, and I bought an album that said England's Newest Hitmakers, but it was the Rolling Stones. but I didn't know it. And I take it home, and I'm looking for I Want to Hold Your Hand. It's not on there.
It's not there.
But there's all these blues songs by guys like M. Morganfield, E. McDaniels, and I got really curious about that stuff, Then I heard that Lightning Hopkins going back in Florida blues, and I just went, whoa. So no, there weren't any real blues guys where I was that I was aware of.
When like, you know, in terms of like coming up, when you consider yourself, when did you first plug in? Were you ever an acoustic musician before that? Because I mean, with the Beatles, I mean, that to me is like voltage. That's when amplification was king at that point. Where before you had the Queskin jug bands and you had, you know, lots of acoustic. I mean, even the jazz was so conversational, but it was acoustic, you know. And did you have an acoustic period before you merged to?
I did. When I was 6, I heard Elvis Presley on the radio and went right up on my bike and bought that single.
Wow.
And I really liked the B-side way better, Don't Be Cruel. Because it had this cool thing that goes, and I thought, oh man, that is so cool. So I got an acoustic guitar from Sears.
Oh, I love it.
An F-Hall, probably made by Kay when I look back on it, but they were making guitars for everybody then. And that's what I played from age of 7 through 11 or 12. And then I really wanted an electric guitar. So,
can you just talk about that seminal period? Because you didn't really know what you were doing. There was maybe you got some basic lessons, or
I had one lesson. I couldn't stand it.
Yeah, exactly.
So I did it by ear. I'd figured out, I knew some chords on the ukulele, so I just started placing my fingers, and then I could hear if it was a good one or not.
Did you have your own tuning, you think? Did you come up with your...
I did learn how to tune the strings, but then I would just fart around until I found something, nothing complicated, cowboy chords. You know, I remember going, hey, that's fine. Ain't nothing wrong with that.
I dig.
And then it's just, you know, buddies, you had that 7th note. Whoa, is that, you know what I mean? It just sort of grows organically.
You say that most of the cats that you were collaborating with through your high school years, they were all what I call street scholars. None of them came out of the academy. They were all ear-trained musicians, or were, you know?
They're all kids that just really liked the music. Most of them liked pop and rock, but
at the time, though,
was pretty hip.
Right, very hip.
So we'd be doing Stones tunes and even Beau Brummel's tunes and, you know, stuff like that, kind of, and some of it kind of bubblegummy. But pretty soon it became apparent within your circle, some guys were doing it for attention and girls, and some guys were doing it because they couldn't help it. And that cusp became very clear at a certain point, you know. You had guys that they're going to do this and they're probably going to change their life to enable themselves to do this. And these guys, they found the girl. They're going, right?
I mean, most cats got into it for that. And then all of a sudden it was, this is feeding me spiritually. It's the only thing I know how to do.
Yeah.
I have to go.
Yeah.
And there was still sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Talk about where did you fall down? I don't believe that you were a woman. You know, you weren't maybe looking for the women, but you it was feeding you spiritually, the music.
It was, and I got the same feeling out of playing music with other guys. I did some solo gigs, but they're a totally different thing. The beauty of it is the collaboration. The beauty of it is just like being on a good team. And it's funny, in my dream vocabulary, I played a lot of basketball when I was a kid. I grew up in Indiana and I was tall, so you know.
Come on.
In my dream world, if I'm dreaming and it's a scene where the band's playing, it could switch to being a basketball game and make no difference in the dream. That's how similar those mental states are to me. It's like you're playing with 4 other guys and your goal is to make each other better so that you win.
I love where you're going with this, because the bands that I actually go and travel and go see, and I want you to talk about an experience. It doesn't have to be the first one, but where you guys as a band, on a good night, with so much trust, you became one living, breathing organism. That to me, when the rhythm is moving and the band is moving and you're just reacting to the environmental sound. Can you point to a band you were in early on where it was like, because when you're in the flow in a basketball game, I'm not talking about somebody who's in the zone, so to speak. I'm talking about like 5 men on the court when you're swinging it and you just know where everybody's going to be telepathically. Yeah. Can you talk about a band? Because to me, that's the magic of music. And it's so hard to have a band these days.
In both cases, when you get that team zeitgeist thing going,
right,
it goes slow motion. everything is,
Oh, I love
there's
it.
time for everything, and there's space. And in music, that when you really get guys cooking, it's no one's nervous and edgy and trying to fill everything. It's you all trust that your time is such a subjective thing. But when you have a band where everybody reads time the same way, or at least you and the bass player do, there can be these moments where the space just takes over. You don't have to come in forever, because you know when you do, they're right at that same point. So you're going to come back in on the one, but it might be the next one. You could let this space go on forever because you're just there. And audiences read that too. They learn to trust it too. You know, they're not nervous that you're not going to come in.
Well, that's what I want to talk about. What are the antecedents? These are the terms I'm going to throw out. Because all I care about in music are three things: tension and release, pulse, and dynamics.
Dynamics.
Okay? I mean, and so much of what happens today, especially at louder concerts, cats are, my generation too, 40, a Gen X or younger, they're obsessed with making sure they hear themselves. So they have these in-ear monitors, talking about like drummers and stuff.
Right.
But the minute you have those monitors in, you're behind the beat, because you're just hearing you're obsessed with hearing yourself. When in reality, it's about hearing that environmental sound.
You know, my idea on stage is I always want to hear exactly. I want it transparent. I want to hear what the audience is hearing. I want to hear everybody equally. If everybody's getting loud, then everybody has to get loud.
That's right.
If one guy gets loud, everybody's got to come up, and pretty soon you don't have music happening anymore. You know, I mean,
It's more like noise.
it's noise. It's like commercials. They jack them up so every note is the highest they're allowed.
That's right. That's a very good point.
And that's not what it's about. It's listening. And these guys reading some of your stuff. I mean, all these
you
guys
sound like you're
say-
channeling a
they
little
say
bit.
the same. They all say the same thing. That's the reading. I'm going, exactly. This is what all musicians say. You got to listen.
You got to have big ears too. I mean, there's a difference between hearing and listening. I mean, was there a period of, like, going back to the band where you felt like you guys were had a road dog experience as a band? Can you talk about a band that still kind of pulls your heartstreins on this Valentine's Day?
I played for a long time in a band called the Dust Bowl Blues Band, and we
Right.
struggled to get gigs because blues in the Midwest, just, I mean, if you weren't John Hammond, you probably weren't filling up the places.
Blue-Eyed, I mean, you weren't Boss. It wasn't Blue-Eyed Soul.
No,
it was more like
Muddy Waters.
I did, yeah. Difficult terrain out
19
there.
years old, that kind of material, and the real deal. But then I started writing tunes, and while everything I do is sort of, there's blues in there, it's not all. I started enjoying all kinds of things, and so my writing wasn't strictly blues, so I wanted a different outlet for that. So I had a band we had called Ace in the Hole, WHOLE, and we played 230 nights a year. We traveled all over. We came out here from Minnesota.
What year was this?
1980.
Wow.
And,
Ace in the Hole.
So that band was 79 to 84, but we played a lot.
Right.
And there were times when we hit that sweet spot, but it was never, there was always tension in that band because there was,
Ego.
well, and there was two guys that really did, that whole black music thing has a feel that some white guys just can't get. They have more of a bluegrass jump the beat feeling rather than
You're nailing it, dude.
laying
You're
it back on
nailing
the
it.
back. So that's what I was talking about. Time being a really flexible rubber bandy thing, and some guys hear it right at the front, and the music it jumps that way, bluegrass. But blues, it's in time. It's not slowing down, but it's way on the ass end of that beat. If the beat's that long, it's back here.
Well, what about also the idea in black music inherently, going back to like someone like Jamerson? He wasn't necessarily reading the notes on the page. He was interpreting a lot of that stuff too.
Yeah.
So that's part of the black aesthetic of music too. Is I don't want to say throwing the book away, but putting your own interpretation on that stuff, not being so rigid to have to read exactly what it is.
You know, that whole reading thing, I gotta say, I was one time working at a place where everybody had to be a musician.
Right.
And so one night at the club would be jazz night, and then folk night, blues night, and classical night. And there was this gal there, a classical pianist. She'd already toured the world. She was brilliant. She could not improvise. She couldn't sit in with us. And I used to be so intimidated by her. And I said, you know, it's just amazing that you can read this music. And she said, I can't improvise. She said, I got to point something out to you. She said, music existed long before anybody figured out a way to notate it. And she said, it's a not very subtle way to try to interpret something as malleable as music. And I took that with me. I thought, you know, Duck Dunn, James Jamerson, somebody might have put a sheet in front of them. They were ignoring that.
Chuck Rainey too. I mean, I've been, you know, like to me, like these guys are all classic dudes because it was like here. And I also think that part of the magic of all this music we've been talking about is that so many of the people that were producing at the time were really A&R guys. They were like music fans.
Right.
So it wasn't like they were all caught up in their own ego and like they were like, here's a sketch, but these guys are geniuses. So then let them riff off let them do what they do best. You know?
Yeah, some of those guys are amazing, weren't they?
Well, and you're amazing. I mean, so you're telling me that this woman who toured the world, strict classicalization, reading the notes, couldn't improvise. Where were you at? I mean, how did you learn? I want you to talk about being vulnerable on the bandstand because, you know, in that first volume of Cats, I'm not sure if you've gotten to David Spinoza yet, but when you do, he talks about going into Atlantic Studios. He had a jingle date there. And he's off going to another gig. And Arif Mardin and Dr. John pull him into the room and they say, listen, we got this track going and we want you to lay a solo over it. And it was Right Place, Wrong Time, Dr. John. Right. And so he riffs he gets his amp just like you did, gets the guitar and overbends a string big time on the first take. And he's like, let me do it again. They're like, nope, that's great. That's it. See you. You know, we're done.
Yeah.
That clam wound up being on the hit record. You know, it's,
right.
You know, so were you able to clam your way to an improvisational cathartic experience? Not like you were John McLaughlin. But...
Yes. I mean, all those early bands, I'd be playing and I'd look around and go, God, there's probably 5 guys in here that are so much better than me. But you know, while that's a humbling thing and sort of embarrassing and it makes you also not play as well as you can because you're a little intimidated and uptight, but it makes you want to get better. So it's that Buddhist thing. Is this a good thing or a bad thing, right? You don't know till later. Right?
I dig, man.
And so then it drives you to get better. So you go, God damn it, I don't want to be that guy. But I think I felt that way. There comes a certain point where you go, this is how, you know what? This is how I play. And you know what? No one plays like I do. I'm finally comfortable in my own bag, you know.
Dude,
74.
you're nailing, so much of this stuff is prescient. Merle Briganti, the drummer from Loggins and Messina, opened for Mahavishnu Orchestra at the Boston Commons. So they opened the show, and they were a very popular band.
Yeah.
Packed out the Boston
But John McLaughlin's.
Well, no, so Briganti is the drummer. They cook the groove, they play their set, he cleans up, goes out to the soundboard, and these guys in disheveled outfits and white garb and college jerseys come out, and he sees Billy Cobham.
Oh.
Just on fire. And he went back to LA and was ready to quit music. And Milt Holland, great studio cat, incredible drummer, almost from the vaudeville era, so funky and cool. And he sat down Merle, he said, you know what? You're never going to be Billy Cobham, and Billy Cobham's never going to be you. So you be you. But that takes a lot, and we're in such a time now where it's all based on facility and chops and riffology. Instead, when I go see Uncle Steve Graham's, it's just him.
Yeah.
Like, you know, but do you remember that threshold? Like at a certain point where you're like, I got my bag, I am not going to be in, can you talk a little bit about that demarcation point for you?
Well, I think I was well into my 50s before it came.
Incredible.
You grow up, if you're not trained and not going to Juilliard and Berkeley and all that stuff, you're a guy like, you're just learning from others that you watch and listen to, and you're trying to get better, and you're always trying to overcome that feeling of worthlessness. Because you know what? That's so, for a journalist, a non-musician, one reason I've been able to go toe-to-toe with a lot of the masters, I'm not really intimidated by them, but to hear it from a musician, worthlessness. That is, because I know cats that are even
at the highest level, and they still don't think that. They still think they're worthless.
I know. It's because your whole life you want to get, there's so-and-so. Like the first time I heard T-Bone, I go, oh my God. You talk about quitting your instrument. There's so many times when that would happen. You go, I'll never be able to do that. Not realizing that you don't have to do that. They're doing that. You don't have to do that. But you don't know that. And I think it takes a long time to finally go, I'm not that. Here's how I write these songs. I sing pretty good. I play my guitar adequately to cover myself when I'm singing and playing. I can do all right on harp. That's who I am. And just be comfortable with it. Well, then you relax and you sound better.
Can we get another tune? You want to play another tune? Yeah.
This is
Talk to me.
I think everybody's done this tune.
Are you going to do it in the Kildahl style, though?
When you give love and never get love, you better let love depart. 'Cause I know it's so, still I know that I can't get you out of my heart. Oh, you made me lose my happy home. You took my love and now you've gone. Since I fell for you, oh yeah. Since I fell for you. And love brings such misery and pain. I guess I'll always feel the same, baby. Since I fell for you. Well, it's too bad, and it's too sad. I'm in love, honey, with you. First you love me, then you snub me. What can I do? I'm still in love with you, and I guess I'll never see the light.
Nope.
I get the blues almost every night. Since I fell for you, oh yeah, yeah. Since I fell for you. Since I fell for you. Since I fell for you.
You know,
Mose did that one too.
dude,
Bonnie
Mose.
Raitt did that one.
Bonnie Raitt.
She's a big Mose fan too.
Well, she is on fire. But also stick-to-itiveness. Did you feel like, this is important. Leadership. What, in your mind, are the most important qualities of leadership on the bandstand?
Supporting the other guys.
Talk a little bit specifically about what that means.
I've always been, I think that comes from the team thing. If I have this, in this band I play in now, one of the bands I play in, there's this guitar player who plays left-handed upside down.
Oh, I love that, yeah.
He is just awesome.
Yeah.
He's like a savant.
The tone is great too, right?
And he's an edgy guy. He's hard to get along with. But I want him in my band, and when he's playing, I want to support him to get him to play the best he can. So I'll do a rhythm thing to support him, and I try to do it with everybody. And that kind of thing it's not till a lot later that guys will go, you really make us sound better because you support everybody. Guys take a while to get that because it's all about me for everybody, right?
That's right.
I played great. They don't notice what you play. Like you're talking about the guys with the in-ear monitors. Old school guys will listen to each other. So for me, the leadership thing comes in being calm. There's all the nuts and bolts. Of course, I had to get the gear there, get the gig, have the song list, do the singing.
Absolutely.
But all that goes to the side. On stage, you want to never say anything negative to anybody in front of anybody. You want to just be supportive all the time. It's that simple to me.
It's funny because I remember Dave Holland, the great bass player, told me a story that when Coltrane joined Miles, he kept coming up to Miles and saying, "What do you want me to play? What do you want me to play?" And Miles kept turning his back on him. And it took a long time for Train to realize, he just wants me to play me. He wants me to he brought me in to do what I do. But if somebody's edgy or somebody is wanking it, how do you pull them? Because, as a team player, you got to also say, hey, you're not being part of the team here. Is that something that goes on after the show, or is there some way that you can pull somebody back in if they're just, oblivious to the fact that they're repeating lines and there's not a lot of interesting movement going on?
That happened in that road band I was in where we were playing so much. That was back when clubs would hire you 5 nights. So you're playing all
2 months,
the time.
yeah.
And we'd play sometimes in the afternoon at the local college, go in and play. And so we're playing all the time. And so some of those arrangements will get pretty stale.
Formula.
Guys are playing the same thing all the time. And you lose your edge. So I remember, I think we were in Fargo maybe, and I said, okay, here's in the motel, I said, here's what we're gonna do. If it's your solo, what you get to do is write what the band plays. You're not soloing, you're telling everybody else what to play and who's taking the solo and how the band should do it. So from now on, we're thinking about solos that way.
Wow.
You don't play.
See, that to me is great leadership.
And so everybody it was just like this whole paradigm shift where you go, well, now you have to listen to what everybody's doing because you're writing that.
Right.
Here's this, you get, 2 progressions to say what you want, but you say it with the band. Who's going to play the solo and what is everybody else going to play? It was short-lived because it was a lot of work, but it really realigned.
I love you getting cats out of their original mindset and getting them into it. Maybe that would require a lot of thinking, but to me, I love my whole goal of my show, in many different forms, is how to create spiritual music. How, as an audience member, I can bring voltage to the bandstand to get cats out of their thinking mind, so that they get in the spirit mind. Because once they get in the spirit mind, all bets are off, and then the collective consciousness is going through the roof.
Exactly.
That to me is all what it's about.
So that's a whole nother subject. So you're talking about the dynamics in a band and what happens in the band, but the magic happens when there's a band playing to an audience, right? And somebody mentioned to me, or I was reading an article, but back in our tribal days, everybody sang. When did singing become a specialized thing? Everybody used to sing and dance as a group. And that's what the whole thing Pete Seeger was trying to re-establish, and people like that. That whole folk movement was about inclusion, right? But somehow but still, a real magic happens when you've got an audience and a good band and an audience, because that's the whole thing now. It's just as much as then the band really establishes a rapport with the audience. It's all one thing I don't even know how to put it into words.
Well, no, I would also say I remember Michael Shreve from Santana, dear friend, he said to me,
great drummer.
Amazing drummer, and just a beautiful human being. Just a regular dude. And he used to say, how do you expect the audience to go there if the band doesn't go there first? So back in the days of the Family Dog and the Fillmore, I get it. There were no real distractions unless you were in an altered state. There weren't phones, lasers. So it was okay for the band to build momentum. But now I feel the apathy and the distraction and the ADHD and all this stuff. fundamentally believe, especially if it's cats that I love, sometimes I love the musicians more than the music, I'm going to bring that fire immediately.
Yeah.
And let the band know that they're on.
Me too.
You know what I'm saying? And I think the audience, I see it at shows. I just was at. It was funny. I mean, the amount of flack I get for dancing at a show now. You know, like down in front, I'm like, get up and dance.
Yeah, this is music.
Dude, what is happening with this?
Sitting on your hands bullshit. I know.
And I'm not talking about, listen, symphonic orchestra, I'll sit.
Yeah.
Dude, this is Steve Graham's, this is the Tire Biters. This is like a raw blues band. You're supposed to move your body.
You are.
And you got cats sitting, and when did we get to a point when, I mean, it's always been Eurocentric, don't get me wrong. We clap whether we like the song or not, things like that. But the idea, man, I mean, we're talking like clearly situations where this is dance music and people are telling you to sit down.
Yeah. Oh, my wife goes nuts about that.
Thank God, because I need to be with her, man. Because I just fired back. Some dude was yelling. It was last week. These guys, the Tire Biters, they're having a ball. These are
I
great.
saw them at Monterey.
Yeah. Oh, you were there. Maybe that was it. They were cooking.
The two guitars together. They're doing some magical stuff.
And then some dudes. You know, I'm off on the side. I'm not even in the middle. I'm just off on the side, like grooving. And it's like, dude, get your ass out of your chair.
Yeah.
Like really, like to me, I actually, maybe this is a good segue just to talk about how music, vibration specifically, has kept you healthy, young at heart, and still, you know, horny to play. I mean, to me, like vibration we're talking here.
Yeah.
But man, communal vibration, the most healing thing in the world.
I think people need a reason to get up in the morning. And artists are lucky that way. Look how long Pablo Casals, or Pablo Picasso, or Will and Ariel Durant writing their History of Civilization. It kept them alive to 98 and 93 because they weren't done, right? They weren't done.
They weren't done.
They had more to do, and that's the key. So it doesn't have to be art, although that's seems to be the one I think about all the time. But if, say, I can't think outside that box, but something that interests you so much that you have to get up and finish it.
Is it about consistently just creating as well, creating something on your palette, getting stuff out of your system? You know, because it could be computer software or whatever, but to me, like, you're still searching for that sound, right?
I think it's down to hands. I think people need to make things with their hands.
Yeah, right.
I mean, it can be a mental construct, but if you don't carve it, if you see that Pieta in that big rock Carrara marble, you've already done the art, but now you got to carve it out and show people that you saw it. That's what Michelangelo.
Well, that's exactly the issue I have today in music education, is that you have teachers that are teaching at the graduate level and they've never been on the bandstand.
That doesn't make sense.
So it's all just like what you said. There's no application. It's all here. And then how are the kids supposed to come out sounding like their own individual sound? They're going to wind up sounding like the professor.
Why don't they teach them to think like a music producer? Why don't they teach them to, you got a melody in your head? What instruments should be on it to fully realize it? Well, should it have a piano? Should it have a triangle? Should it have hand clapping?
Right.
So the Beatles would wake up with a new song, and then they go in the studio, and they're so good at that, right? What are we going to use on this one? Let's use a trumpet on Penny Lane. But see, why don't they teach kids to think that way? Think like a producer. Do you hear the rhythm? Listen to this music. Do you hear the rhythm guitar? Pick out the bass line and listen to it carefully. It's constructed of these building blocks, which we just hear a song. Right? Why don't they teach these kids? But that requires some bandstand experience.
Not only that, the problem, you're talking about a lot of things that are essentially hard to quantify, and everything is codified now based on budget. You know, in order to get a budget, you have to prove this stuff. So much of the magical stuff that we're talking about, just creation, you can't quantify it.
No.
And then on top of that, if you have no bandstand experience, you're really up the creek. So it's just, you know, Where are you still looking to push yourself out of your comfort zone in order to grow?
I get together with a guy, used to be every week, but it would be flagging, and I'm trying to have him show me jazz standards because
I did.
they, you know, all those, you grow up playing those cowboy chords, you know,
Right.
stuff like that, but you aren't playing
Yeah, you want that Wes Montgomery, the chordal stuff, you know?
Wes Montgomery, yeah, and that T-bone shit.
Right.
So you got. So how'd it go? Fly me to the moon. So all those things, those turn into blues too. That's where that wonderful amalgamation of blues and jazz happens, you know, and bringing those chords into. So you got some Willie Dixon tune that's. You see me watching you just like a hawk. I don't mind the way you talk, but when Mose gets it, gotta give. I live the life I love, and I love the life I live.
Yep.
I may lay 100 on a bet this time. Tomorrow night I can't cover your dime. Next week I could be over the hill.
Ha!
Just trying to tell you people how I feel. You know, that kind of, and then they go into the instrumental part.
Well, then they leave the head of the tune and they go out wherever, you know?
Then they start doing the, and then they do 2/5 instead of the 5. Right? I mean, Mose gets a hold of Willie Dixon, you got some.
That's it. I mean, but
shit
it
going
was
on.
so, man. Okay, you know, before I wrap up with you here, set one, just blowing by here, what's it going to take to get you down here more often? I mean, Grams was raving about. He just called me out of the blue. It's such a treat. And he's telling me he's hitting me to you, and he said you guys been playing. I know you guys been having a ball, but what's it going to take to keep you down here for a while?
I gotta get down here.
I mean, it's boiling in the summer. I understand that it's hot.
Yeah.
But do you talk a little bit about your experiences in Tucson musically? I mean, this is to me like
I've had a ball here. I used to come and see my Dust Bowl Blues Band buddy here in the '90s, Don Scott. He would winter out here,
right.
and that was my first introduction. Well, actually, I came out in '80 with Ace and the Hole, and we stayed with Grams, and we played some.
You did.
Place for a week. That was on our. I don't remember the name of the place, but 1980. Then I came back in the '90s. And my buddy, I was here for a week, and he says, well, we're playing an open mic on Tuesday. That's what he had going. But Grams knew I played harp, and at the time there weren't any harp players in town. So I wound up with 8 gigs in 7 days. and my buddy is so ticked off about this because, you know, I wasn't invited back. That was kind of
That is
But it was so funny because there weren't any harp players.
I
played with Ralph Gilmore. Ralph lives right there.
Dude, my another uncle. I freaking love Ralph so
And
much.
he had a studio. We went in there and recorded a bunch of stuff.
So just humor me and tell me a great Steve Graham story. I mean, when did you guys first? That dude was cooking the groove hard back. I mean, similar time period. I have to believe you guys must have crossed paths. I'm curious.
He played in I stumbled into Mankato, Minnesota in '74. Steve came, I think, in '75, but right away he was in a band with 2 other really good musicians, Footy Houston, Tom Houston, and Ron Arsenal. And they called themselves Tennis Shoe Ernie. And that's the first time I heard Grams. And then he was in this band called the Blitz Boys, which is sort of a bluegrass band. There's this band now called Trampled by Turtles. I gotta say, Blitz Boys were just 30 years ahead of those guys and way musicianship past them. They were an awesome band.
Damn.
And
Was he playing upright
He was.
in the
Oh
bluegrass?
no, he played electric bass.
In a bluegrass, but it was bluegrass feel kind of.
But I saw him play upright. But
Yeah.
we never played in a band together. So I got to know him later. In fact, like when we came out here in 1980, we started kind of bonding because. But he was always legendary in Mankato among the players because Steve doesn't play one extraneous note. He's never busy. He's like an umpire. You don't notice him because he doesn't screw. He's like an umpire.
But so melodic.
But
too,
he's
though.
driving.
Yeah.
But he's driving the drummers listen to him, which is a lot of the jazz cats will say bass sets tempo, not the drummer.
I agree.
And Steve sets it, and it's at the back. He hears it. He hears it blues and art. He's at the back end of the beat always. That too, like people that jump the beat, it drives that bluegrass. But that waiting on the back end of the beat has a propulsion thing.
You're
too.
nailing it, dude.
It drives that music from a different point, and that allows for swing. That's where swing comes
Exactly,
from.
dude. There's a bubble. There's a groove. It allows this thing, and the breathing component
It's
is
the
key.
breathing space component, but because of that, it doesn't seem like that little bit of time in the space of a beat could make so much difference, but it does. So when Steve drives, he propels it from beneath there, and it's
hypnotic.
never more.
really.
He's never saying more than he needs to say, but just what he needs to say, and just when he needs to say it, and that's why everybody talks about him. That's why he gigs all the time, right? I mean, musicians go, "I want him." So
When just tell me a little bit about. You got anything on the calendar coming up?
yeah, I got a couple shows coming up when I get back. Opening for a great horn R&B band called the Jimmies. Doing that, and some other small time gigs. I do some solo work. So I got a 3-piece band, Bad Liquor Management. Bad Liquor Management's a duo, but we'll play as a duo. But then other times we'll have 7 pieces. So we invite from the commune, sort of. You know what I mean? And depending on the scene. And then I've got the Minnesota Barking Ducks. That's the blues band with the left-handed dude.
He's edgy, but he's mad.
Oh,
Those cats,
well,
man.
I think he's on a scale somewhere.
Right, but it's okay because I my buddy Sammy same way, but not edgy, just a sweetheart. But Blaze, I mean the tone on that is insane.
So I've been taking lessons from him and playing a band with him, but he didn't have any money, so I said, "Gee, I could use a guitar lesson every week." That was a way for me to funnel him some dough. And learning from a guy, if you learn from a left-hander, it's simple. It's simply a mirror image.
Right.
But when it's upside down and left-handed, none of the fingerings are the same. So in learning, if he's teaching me a standard, it's really good because I can't just copy his position. I have to see each note he's playing and find a way to play it. Well, that lasts with you longer if you have to dig it out like that, right? So it's good, but it takes a long time. But just what a player! I'm so lucky the players I've got to play with. I mean, that's the thing.
Well, actually, no. Are you going to be on the bandstand anymore in Tucson? Jake Feinberg needs to come see you.
21st Parish with Danny,
With the blues band?
the big band. No, it's what do they call it?
Bad News Blues.
Krieger and
Grams and Gilmore?
Grams and Krieger's big band.
Graham
at
and
the
Krieger,
Parish.
but not the Bad News Blues.
No, it's that's how it's booked at the Parish anyway. There's a bunch of bands, and they're one of them. But Steve had asked me to come. I suppose play harp on a couple tunes or something.
Well, then we will pick up hanging there, baby.
All right.
Kip Kildahl, man. Kip Kildahl, such an honor to connect with you, man.
Hey, this has really been fun. Thanks, Jay.
That's what it's about, man. Happiness is our divine right. Happy Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
It's the Jake Feinberg Show. We'll see you later.